Hello and welcome to episode number 439 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. We're back, it's the new year, and we are back live again on this day. It's Friday, currently the 6th of January at 7 o'clock on this Friday evening. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and joining me across over the other side of the village is, of course, the guy pushing all the buttons in the studio. It's Matt Smith.
Hello. How are you? Happy New Year.
I know, another year. It's just flown by.
I know. So this is technically year 10, I think, if my memory serves correctly. I might be wrong. Producer John will probably shoot me down in flames very soon. But yes, I've got a feeling we've just started our 10th year.
Yes.
I might be wrong.
A quick run through, actually, because I forgot to mention at the start of the show. This week's show, we are taking a look at some hot new laptops. One passenger suitcase goes on tour by itself. We'll go retro with a look at 1930s BA. And in the military, Chinese fighter jet gets a little too close to a US reconnaissance aircraft, and the Red Arrows are on their way to getting a new aircraft. More on that later. But joining us, as always, across over in his, well, we've seen it earlier on before we went live. It's a state-of-the-art studio. It's Neville Bones.
Absolutely. It's a state, is what you really mean.
Nev, good to see you back.
Yes, Happy New Year to everybody, and great to be back. I've spent 3 or 4 days in Amsterdam this week. More on that a bit later on. Back to work full on. And just come back for a rest, actually. Hopefully we have a quieter weekend.
Yes.
No, great to be back, and lots of interesting news stories on the show, I notice, as well.
Indeed.
Yeah, very good ones this week now.
Yeah.
But good to see you. Glad you've had a busy week flying. We'll obviously hear about your exploits with the airlines later on.
That's a word for it. Indeed.
And if you're ever wondering what to do on an evening when you're sitting at home with man flu and you've got a spare PC, laptop, tablet next to you, then you can stalk someone who's flying an aircraft. And I personally, when I'm sitting in my front room at home, love to stalk this next person, our main pilot of the show. He is, of course, the great Armando.
That's great. Now we have recorded evidence when we have to present it to the police about the stalking.
Quite, yes.
Hi, Carlos. It was cool to have you tracking me along, although I was thinking the whole time the soundtrack of Space Control to Major Tom checking in was going through my head.
Yeah, absolutely. And the potential lawsuit of the stalking.
Obviously, you knew that I was tracking you the night. Is it a kind of weird feeling knowing that there is someone there sitting at the other end of the world with a computer tracking your every move with the aircraft?
It just made me want to sound more like a trucker on the radio.
10-4, good buddy.
Oh, dear. It was fun. It was good fun.
I think that's what you said, Nev, wasn't it, in the group chat when we were talking about it?
Yes, is it to remind me of my CB radio days?
Yes, absolutely. Back in the day.
CB radio. I should never have sold mine. That'd be worth a fortune.
I know. Before mobile phones, eh?
I know. So lots to do on the show tonight, and obviously it's the beginning of the month, so it's a very special time indeed. So Nev, we've got to thank some incredibly generous people, haven't we?
Yes, we have, and of course without your help, folks, we cannot do the show. So many thanks who have contributed to this month's broadcasts to Sam Dawson, Logan Lynch, Alex Robinson, Dirk S, Sasha Beer, Stephen Ivey, Nick Codling, Luis Casares, Alan White, Stephen Howland, Tanya Wyman, Nicholas Hewitt, Masha, Ruben Wells, Neil Lamborn, Graham Haley, Jonathan Warner, Eric Graves, Jordan Rose, Andrew Wilson, Captain Jeff, Adam Spink, Liz Piper, Jeff Ward, Jenny Parkinson, Evan Shue, Stuart Backer, Ray Williams and Stephanie Plummer. And for the folks that pay us via the PayPal platform, thanks to Tony Stubbings, Mazuz Kareem, Richard Adams and Craig Eurosoko. Thank you very much to all of you, your contributions are very welcome indeed. Especially at this time of the year when we had to have a new hard disk
Indeed.
in the broadcast
We
PC.
did,
That
yes.
did help a lot, I have to say.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we finally got to the bottom of why it all went wrong when Carlos is. It's typical it to go wrong when Carlos is sat in the chair, of course. Yeah, it's absolutely typical. Wouldn't do it on my watch, of course. Where would the fun be in that?
No, so we had a new hard drive installed, and thanks to everyone who donates that supports us in that way, because it does, as you can see, genuinely help.
Yeah, absolutely. When things go wrong,
everyone.
Absolutely, indeed.
So thanks to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. And have a quick run through all the names in there. Let's have a look who's there. We've got Mazoos is in the chat room tonight. Hello to you, Mazoos. We have got Captain Cruz, Hobby Time is in there, Lee Davies as well. Hello to you, Lee. Ray Davis was in there earlier. I don't know whether Ray is still in there. It must be like sort of 3 in the morning.
o'clock. Yeah.
We have got, scrolling down, Sturman. Hello to you, Sturman. We have got Alan White. Hello, Alan. Richard Adams. Hello to you, Captain Cruz. Dirk S. Hello to you, Dirk. Hope you're well. Just scrolling on. Jenny over in Rome. Hello to you, Jenny. Good to see you in there as well. We've got Jonathan Warner. He's obviously waiting for midway through the show, the military segment. Our main man, Mike, is in there, ready to defeat the brutal bots that will probably pop up at some point on the show. Tony S. Hello to you as well, Tony. Good to see you in there. Evan Shue. Must be silly o'clock where Evan is as well. Blimey, they're all in here from Australia today. Very good. Neil Lamworn. Hello to you as well, Neil. Good to see you. And Indigo Blue. Hello, Indigo Blue. Good to see you in the chat room as well this evening. And thanks to everyone for tuning in this evening and watching the live show. If you listen to us through the downloadable kind of way of things, like iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, loads of different ones are available. If you want to see us live, we're live on a Friday night, 7 o'clock here on YouTube. Just search for us on YouTube, Plane Talking UK. Subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when Matt's hitting the go live button on his touch screen. We'd love to have you in the chat room.
Also, hey, real quick, Carlos.
Yeah.
Just like we encourage everybody that listens to the show to follow us on social media. Believe it or not, we actually do the same. We once we get to know you and you're kind of part of the podcast family, we get to we follow you guys on social media, and it was really, really cool to see our Australian contingent flying this week in the Cirrus. Awesome pictures. Well done, guys. I've actually never flown a Cirrus, so I'm actually a little jealous. I think
he met. Did he meet up with friend of the show Owen as well? Didn't he? I think was it him and Evan had a little flight as well. I seem to recall.
I think.
Yes, as well as Grant too. Yes, exactly.
Oh, Grant as well. Oh, blimey, really at it, aren't they? Honestly, what they're like. Anyone would have thought they all got on.
Keep those updates coming, because we actually follow you guys also.
Yeah.
Where we stalk everyone.
Yeah. Carlos isn't fussy about who he stalks. Really, he will. If there's a plane involved, he's up for it. That's.
I just need to get Nev's flight numbers now, so I can sort of stalk Nev when he goes flying.
Yeah. I say careful. Look, it's bad. I was going to say it's bad enough that we've got the thing where Nev and Armando can't be on the same show like more than 5 times a year or whatever. We don't need to have a restriction with you as well, Carlos. Come on, you need to behave.
Oh dear. Well, that's our geeks. We've got to get our fix somewhere.
True.
Anyway, so let's move on with the first part of the show then. As always, it is the commercial news. So if everyone's ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
Love a good old story about spontaneously combusting batteries, but this one to kick off this first live show of the new year comes to us from paddleyourown.canoe.com, and the headline: 2 flight attendants injured after rushing to extinguish fire caused by an overheating laptop. Yes, I know. 2 Lufthansa flight attendants had to be treated for smoke inhalation on Monday evening this week after they rushed to fight a small fire on board a flight from LA that was caused by a passenger's overheating laptop. Lufthansa flight LH457 departed Los Angeles International Airport at around 3:26 p.m. bound for Frankfurt on Monday, but was forced to make an emergency landing in Chicago around 5 hours after it took off. The nearly 10-year-old Boeing 747-8 veered off its usual route after just passing Minneapolis and headed towards Chicago, where it was made to enter a holding pattern before finally being cleared to land. A Lufthansa spokesperson said the pilots made an unscheduled stop at Chicago O'Hare as a precautionary measure after the fire had already been extinguished. Safety on board was not compromised at any time, and the airline told them in a statement that none of the passengers on board were injured. But the statement continued that 2 flight attendants were treated on site for smoke inhalation. Lufthansa's ground staff are currently assisting passengers, and they were rebooked on to their final destinations. And Lufthansa regretted the inconvenience caused to passengers, and the safety of passengers and crews are a top priority at all times, they said. Well, don't they always say? The incident occurred just days after a JetBlue flight from Barbados was evacuated onto the tarmac at New York's JFK after a passenger's laptop overheated and started smoking just as the Airbus A320 pulled up onto the gate on arrival. 7 of the passengers sustained minor injuries during the incident on Christmas Eve after the emergency slides were used in the evacuation. None of the 133 passengers on board that flight were seriously injured. And laptop computer fires can be potentially very dangerous because they are powered by lithium batteries that are prone to suffering from thermal runaway should they be damaged or overheat. Thermal runaway is essentially a chain reaction where the temperature inside a battery can rise very quickly. The battery is likely to emit a lot of smoke, as well as sparks and fire. Once entrenched, it can be very difficult to extinguish a battery suffering a thermal runaway. The laptop battery fires have occasionally been blamed on cheap power cords, but sudden accidental damage is also a major risk factor. Airlines have reported a rise in lithium battery fires caused by passengers getting their electronic items stuck in seat mechanisms. Obviously, for us economy passengers, not an issue. Lufthansa did not immediately comment on the cause of Monday's evening's laptop fire. Now, there was a video that was released on Twitter, actually, of this. I don't know whether that was in the media folder to play out, but here we go. Without the sound, I think this would be a good idea. But as you can see from the video, that the actual smoke blowing out from the overhead bin is quite intense smoke, I think.
Yeah.
And I think I'm right in saying, Armando, that most airlines, or nearly all airlines, I think, carry a large bag, a specially designed bag to put these kind of items in to block off the oxygen to the...
Yeah, that's correct, Carlos. I think most major airlines and regional airlines, and even us in the charter world, we carry a special bag, right? It's a thermal runaway bag, and it also comes with a set of mittens. Judging by that video, that's a pretty intense fire, and anybody that's watched the videos on these kind of thermal runaways and battery fires, it can get really intense really quickly. And the fact that it was in the overhead compartment, that's not great at all, because now you have to like fish it out of there, right? So somebody's got to reach up. And what they did, I'm sure the video is longer, but what they did of just opening up, smoke billowing out, and then closing it back up. Well, think of all the wires. I think most people that listen to the show have seen the inside of the airplane with the trim taken out, right? All the fittings taken out, and that's an immense amount of wires that run through right above all those luggage bins. So by closing it back up, you've got this really hot, intense fire, and it's right where maybe there's hydraulic lines, there's fuel lines, there's bleed air lines, there's electrical cables. And I'm going to add one more thing. December 26th, so this was on Boxing Day, I believe. The weather was terrible. They were passing Minneapolis. It was really cold. There was a storm front coming through. It was one of the worst winter storms in recent history. And at that point, you have the cabin crew trying to communicate to the flight crew up front what the issue is in the back, how they're handling it. Once you start figuring out, they probably not, and it's a 747, so you can't just land anywhere. You can't land at Minneapolis St. Paul, even though it's a big Delta hub, because you may not get back out. They may not have the ground equipment. So being able to land at Chicago O'Hare was good, but now you have this emergency, and as a pilot, you're thinking, man, my airplane's on fire. The weather down low is we've got freezing rain, freezing drizzle, hard IFR conditions. We're going to have to do an instrument approach down to minimums with questionable condition going on in the back. That's how quickly emergencies can compound upon themselves to really, really make a challenging situation on the entire crew and the passengers.
I would like to say, actually, before we sort of move on there, just watching the video more closely, if you look, it's actually most of the smoke has actually come from the fire extinguisher that they dispensed into the bin. In fairness, if you actually watch, when they pull the handle down, they release a fire extinguisher into the hold, and I'm sure it was the right one for the issue, if you see what I mean.
Do you remember, Nev, back in '98? It was that Swiss Air 111, that DC-10.
Yes,
remember that had the fire in it caused by the IFE system on the air.
Yeah, that was horrific. I was just wondering, because I don't have the answer to this, so I'd be interested to if anybody knows about this kind of battery technology. Is there any difference between lithium-ion battery performance on the ground at sea level compared to where they would be, between, 6,000 and 8,000 feet cabin altitude, for example? Does that have any effect on how those batteries perform in a different situation? I don't know the answer to that. I just wonder if anybody...
because of the way the aircraft is working, is the oxygen more concentrated, maybe? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't know whether it's a different phenomenon, but there's quite a lot of this going on, isn't it? Whether it's from people's phones or laptop batteries and this kind of stuff. Now, that does happen on the ground as well, but I don't know the answer. That's why I was asking the question.
I don't know.
Actually, Alan White has a question in the chat room, Armando. Is it halon extinguishers that are used on lithium batteries?
Yeah, a Class D fire extinguisher, which we have on the aircraft, they are effective against lithium-ion batteries. So the standard dry chemical fire extinguisher will certainly help. And there's on a 747, there's probably 10 of them at least. Now the best way to do it is if you can fish it out, put it in the bag, and then put the fire extinguisher onto it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Now it's completely contained.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, sorry, Aaron in there is correct. It does generate its own oxygen, which is why you can't use a water extinguisher on them. You need something that'll literally smother the air.
I see.
Out of that. Yeah.
Like what you'd use with a chip pan fire, that sort of thing. Like you almost want
And welcome to the chat room. I don't remember. Aaron, are you a helicopter pilot?
That looks like
whirlybirds.
That's an incredible photo, whatever that is. That is a helicopter, isn't it?
I do believe.
I do believe.
Hello, Aaron P.
Indeed. Exciting.
Nice to see a new name in the chat room.
Indeed.
Welcome to the minority of helicopters.
Quite. Indeed.
So, Matt, you've got the next story, and this I found this one this week, and this is quite interesting because it's not something that I don't think we've ever covered on the show before. No.
Okay. This is when I first read this. This will shock you. I did actually proofread some of the stories, and I thought it was the flight safety. It was the flight manual that was in Braille, which did make me nervous initially, but it's more for the passengers. So it's on businesstraveller.com. That's the website, and the headline is Alaska Air introduces in-flight safety manual in Braille. Now, part of me is thinking I'm really surprised that hasn't happened before. But Alaska Air introduced its in-flight safety manual in Braille for persons with visual impairments, in keeping with the airline's core value of empathy and ensuring that each of our customers have a warm and consistent experience. The Braille in-flight safety manual provides an explanation of the safety instructions in English and Hindi. Alaska Air has partnered with the Xavier's Resource Centre for the visually challenged to develop this Braille in-flight safety manual. The Braille in-flight safety manual provided to passengers upon boarding, upon request, covers detailed instructions on seatbelt operation, location of emergency exits and life jackets, tactile diagrams that help orientate passengers to aircraft and aircraft positions, and other essential safety information. Commenting on the launch, Belson Coutinho, who is the co-founder and chief marketing and experience officer at Alaska Air, said, "We are committed to being socially cohesive with a focus on being dependable, warm, efficient and reliable, and our Braille in-flight safety manual is a testimony to this commitment. We are extremely grateful to Dr. Sam and the entire team at the XRCVC for their guidance and constant support in our endeavour towards inclusive travel." Dr. Sam, who is the executive director of the XRCVC, who helped develop the manual, said that the Xavier Resource Centre for the Visually Challenged, a department of the St. Xavier College, which I keep saying that, it's spelt literally as it is in the film. That's why I keep thinking of X-Men and all that.
X-Men.
Yeah. Charles Xavier, wasn't it? Is a national level support and advocacy centre for persons with disabilities. XRCVC was set up in 2003 as an assistive technology support centre for students with visual impairment in higher education. Alaska Air's Braille in-flight safety manual is an example of an airline taking a step towards social inclusion.
I don't think I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen Braille, but I've never seen a safety card in Braille on an airline.
I mean, presumably, though, for reasons, and again, this is, I guess I need to be a bit careful with my words here. I know, but presumably, assistance is required, even if it's like special assistance, I suppose. When you're going to the aircraft and getting on it, just purely because it would be difficult for. I mean, I know you can get readers and things, can't you, now, that will give you the details that you need. But I mean, is there a safety implication for needing to make sure that they have someone with them to help? I don't know. I mean, I do love the idea of the Braille card, because it means at least that they can like read the safety rules, if you like, at their own pace, like we all do, don't we? We all pick out different bits and pieces of the safety announcements and stuff. I mean, I know we've covered this before, but like Nev, for example, I mean, Nev and Amanda, I mean, you both do an awful lot of flying, but I mean, you're probably slightly different to most passengers in the fact that you still read all the details every time you get on an aircraft to remind yourself.
I don't.
You don't? Oh.
But I do listen to the safety briefing.
Okay.
That's the most important thing. Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. As I say, I'm perhaps overthinking this, perhaps, but yeah, I assume that in the same way that like my mum needs to have special assistance when we travel together, to sort of, so that it is safe for her to get on and off the aircraft, and obviously they need to know of a person's issue, if you like, when they're on board. I don't know if that's the right word. I
think the cabin crew are made aware of special needs passengers or passengers with some kind of impairment, definitely.
I don't know what word is best, because I don't like the word disability. Does that make sense? Because I mean, I know people who do have challenges to their mobility and things, who would absolutely run rings around me in every single other aspect. Do you know what I mean? So I've never liked that word disability, because I don't think it's the right word for, just because you can't do one thing doesn't
I'll tell you what, in some things I'm bloody jealous, because I would love to be able to do sign language. I know a few people who can do sign language, and I think it's an amazing gift to be able to do sign language.
Well,
why not learn?
I could say absolutely nothing stopping you from learning it, mate. Absolutely not.
I know.
Absolutely not. Well, when I was younger, I did start learning sign language, because I did have hearing issues when I was a child, and so I did start. But then they found out what the problem was.
To your point, Matt, there's so many millions of travelers on commercial airlines. There are so many kinds of abilities and disabilities and different abilities. It would be almost impossible to come up with procedures that are all encompassing.
Yes.
So I think what they do have, and Micah is talking about in the chat room over on the Geek State, interviewed the CEO of a company that makes safety cards, but it would be almost impossible to cater to everyone. So I think that's part of the training for the cabin crew to evaluate people, and then we've talked about that on the show before, right? Where as people are boarding, they evaluate their abilities, and they're very well aware of who will need additional assistance should an emergency arise. But that goes everything to even infants, right? And an infant. There's so many different conditions out there that could potentially prevent someone from effectively leaving the aircraft, right?
At the speed required in which to do it, perhaps.
Yeah, but then then there's the other part. There's that sense of community where I think most other passengers, when you sit down and you start talking to somebody, or you have somebody next to you, Nev, in the back of the plane, you sit next to somebody.
I must look that up on the internet.
I'm sorry, what? Yes, absolutely. There'll be a video somewhere, Nev, don't worry.
I'll send you some pictures of what economy class looks like.
Cattle class, yeah, absolutely.
But I think once you sit down, one of the most amazing individuals that I've met traveling was just recently, right before, actually it was October. So when I was out to Colorado, and Megan and I were flying out, and we noticed that this gentleman was, a quadriplegic. His wife was with him. They took extra time boarding him. And sure enough, when we boarded the aircraft, he was sat right next to us. And we could see first class. So we were the first row, the bulkhead.
Nice. Yeah.
But I got talking to him, and it turned out that he was in the military. He was Air Force Special Operations, as was I. Wow. We knew some of the same people. Very quickly, we made a connection. And the point of my story is, should there have been an emergency, I was 100% ready to assist the cabin crew, because now I know, right? So my civic duty is to help this guy get out with me.
I guess my worry is, I'd like to say that absolutely everybody in your shoes, Armando, right there at that moment would 100% help the person that they're sat next to. But I mean this in the nicest possible way. You're probably a bit different to Mr. Joe, who's just sat on that plane, who would perhaps in that situation be more worried about their own well-being than the person they're sat next to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I would. Yeah. I think most people would help, but that's my opinion, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're probably right. I'm just older and more cynical. I think that's the problem.
Well, and James in the chat room has a great point. What about foreign travelers that don't speak the language of the country that they're traveling in?
Yeah, very true.
Right. I mean, you may not understand the briefing card. You don't understand any of the flight crew instructions, unless you're a traveler. You are very much at a disadvantage if you're not a regular traveler and you don't speak the language.
Agreed.
So moving on, next story. Nev, you've got this one, and obviously we've covered before Christmas. We covered about the old air tags, and this is a sort of story that it's kind of on the same league as such, isn't it?
It is, yes. It's on skynews.com. And it says how an airline passenger tracked the wild ride of her lost luggage. Well, the chance of your luggage going missing is amongst the most anxiety-inducing facets of any flight, especially one taken amid the holiday rush. Unfortunately for Valerie Saibala, that's precisely the scenario that she began 2023 contending with after a domestic US journey from Chicago back to her home in Washington. In a viral Twitter thread beginning with a post that's amassed more than 20 million views since New Year's Day, she documented the wild ride her bag took on its eventual return to her, all thanks to an Apple AirTag. I'm glad I've got mine as well. I should be using that in the next few weeks. Whilst small disc-shaped devices have come under fire over fears that people can use them for criminal or malicious purposes, they are designed to be attached to keys, wallets and other belongings to help find lost items. Informed by the airline United that her bag had not made it on the flight to Washington and safe in the knowledge that an AirTag was attached, Miss Saibala took up the offer of having it delivered by courier. Well, concerned about the whereabouts of her luggage, she investigated an apartment complex the AirTag suggested was housing her belongings. On the 1st of January, 3 days after the bag was said to have departed the airport, she tweeted it had been sitting in a residential complex for over a day, out the back by the dumpsters. I have found other emptied United Airlines bags, she added. Miss Saibala shared screenshots of a conversation she had with a support representative from the airline who assured her that her bag was still on course for delivery. I am sorry, I don't even know why it's showing there, they said of the AirTag assertion that it was elsewhere, even suggesting that Miss Saibala calm down. Well, later that day came a major update regarding her luggage. So she shared a picture of her bag's position on a map. And she said, for the first time since Friday, my AirTag and hopefully luggage appears to be on the move. It's at a McDonald's. Well, the plot thickens. The McDonald's in question appeared to be on Rhode Island Avenue near a shopping centre bearing its name. It eventually left the fast food restaurant, returning to the apartment complex. It's back on the road again because on the second day of the new year brought hope that the luggage would find its way to her home. The AirTag is on the move. It's about 16 miles outside of the city in the suburbs, she tweeted. Hopefully this means it's on a delivery run. Unfortunately, a hopeful fingers crossed emoji was misplaced as the bag ended up going back to the flats. Well, following the bag's latest return there, she enlisted a little posse, including local news crews, to go with her to the building. A text message purporting to be the courier followed, telling her that the bag would be delivered on the day and encouraging her to call me or text me if you have any questions. It's sketchy and it doesn't really match with what my AirTag tracking said, but I immediately called the number, revealed Miss Saibala. The dude who was picking up around the corner, so he drove back to meet me near the building. He looked a little surprised to have two news crews filming. He asked if he was in trouble or something, but at that moment I was too happy to have my bag back to ask him more questions. A United spokesman told Sky News, we've been in touch with this customer to discuss this situation and confirm that she has received her luggage. The service our baggage delivery vendor provided does not meet our standards, and we're investigating what happened to lead to this service failure.
Do you know, I never thought in all the years that I've known you, Nev, I never ever thought I'd hear you say the word dude.
That whole story.
I could barely even pronounce it.
Not quite.
That whole story was worth it just to hear Nev say the dude.
The dude, absolutely. Yeah. Utterly.
But
brilliant.
it goes to show, doesn't it, that these things are working. And since our luggage excursion from last year, I've bought a couple of Apple AirTags, and I shall be using them for my trip to Barcelona at the end of the month and in February to Dallas and Portland. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, you'll have to let us give us an update on what they're how good they are, Nev.
Oh, you're not going to start stalking his luggage now as well, are you?
We're going to stalk his luggage. Yes. I'll have one side of the screen, I'll be stalking Nev's flight. On the other side of the screen, I'll be stalking Nev's luggage.
Right.
And if they don't look the same,
okay.
If my AirTag turns up on ADSB Exchange, I shall be very cross. There is a security breach right there.
Security breach, yeah, absolutely. Oh, dear. Never mind.
Anyway, moving on. Next story, Armando. And this is a story that broke just in the middle of this week, actually.
Yeah, so the point of the story is remember your training. This happened this weekend. It was supposed to be a holiday treat, but this teenage pilot was actually supposed to take his grandmother and two cousins on a short flight this last Monday morning across Southern California. The aircraft that they were traveling in, about 5,500 feet in the air, the plane's engine suddenly failed, the sole engine. Brock Peters, 18 years old, who had just received his pilot's license about 4 months earlier, said that he heard a boom from the engine, and immediately after that, he lost all engine power. Now, Brock, whose career goal is to become an airline pilot, said he knew he only had a few minutes to make an emergency landing. From behind him, he could hear his grandmother crying, but he said he tried to tune that out, and he was completely focused on the airplane. It was just him, the plane, coming down, trying to get everybody safe. The emergency landing was on a quiet stretch of one of the most historic roads in America, Route 66, and it actually made headlines across the country. This January 2nd flight had started out as a normal day, according to him. He's a community college student from Oak Hills, California. He said that he and his cousins had been visiting for the holidays from Colombia and Colorado, and their plan was to fly their single-engine Piper PA-28, complete a flight of about 60 miles from Apple Valley to Riverside, where they were going to have breakfast, as one does, and then fly back to Riverside. A trip he's taken with numerous family members numerous times before. Now, this was a rented aircraft, so once he got to cruising altitude, Peters heard that boom. He relied on his training. He tried to restart the engine. He said that the airplane was losing altitude, and as he tried to restart the engine, he was also starting to think about where to make an emergency landing. Skills that he, of course, had practiced for his private pilot check ride. Now, he did say that there were fields below the airplane, but there were also rocks, trees, everywhere in these fields. So he thought to himself that if he landed there, he was going to perhaps generate some injuries, that the plane was going to be completely destroyed. Remind me about that. I'll come back to that. Peters decided that the road below them he knew it was the old Route 66, and he decided that was actually their best choice to land. So he picked a point in the middle of the road. There was a hill ahead of him, a little curve in the road, and he decided to avoid both of those things. There was one car coming towards him, he recalled, but he pulled off the road. The car pulled off the road out of the way of the aircraft, and another car traveling the same direction was safely out of range. That's when he noticed that there were some telephone poles and some wires running alongside the highway. He said that he didn't realize that until later, that there were also wires crisscrossing the highway every couple hundred feet. Somehow he managed to get this Piper down between all of the wires onto the road. He said later that he didn't even see them. Either way, at that point, once he touched down, it was a sigh of relief for everybody. He decided all he needed to do was slow the airplane down. And he said that the landing was actually just as smooth as any other landing. He didn't talk much to his passengers during the crisis, only telling them that they were going to have to land. And his two cousins, who were both in their 30s, and their 77-year-old grandmother were all shaken, of course. But everybody walked away. And the FAA, which logged the emergency landing, listed no injuries for the pilot or the passengers. He eventually called 911. Fire truck arrived. They helped move the airplane a little bit further off the road. And the FAA is of course investigating this incident. They did say initially that there was some kind of internal failure with the engine, but as you guys can imagine, this is a great feat of airmanship for anyone, but especially a private pilot that has just been freshly minted just 4 months ago. Sometimes those are actually the best pilots for this because they're fresh, right? Like they've just been practicing these emergency procedures, emergency landings, power out landings. It's a really, really, kudos and well done to Brock and his airmanship, and these kinds of things do get noticed. So that's the story. Kind of some points on this. I remember when I grew up on the East Coast. I learned to fly on the East Coast of the United States. And when I first started flying out west, specifically in New Mexico and Texas, on the East Coast, they're always training you to land on roads. Perfectly good, viable options are roads. And when I got out, I flew with this guy. His name was Ed Widener. I've been flying since the Wright brothers, old as dirt, still flying today. And I remember him yelling at me because we were doing a biennial flight review in a Cessna, I think. And he pulled the engine on me and he said, "Where are you going to land?" I was like, "Well, perfectly good roads there." And he said, "Well, that's the worst option. Don't land near roads. There's power lines, there's cattle grates, there's roadside furniture, the signposts and stuff." He's like, "You live in the desert now. Just land in the desert." So that was a good learning point, was sometimes the roads are actually not your best option because there's traffic, there's all kinds of stuff there. The second point that I took away from this was, oh my gosh, I'm having the fact that he said saving the airplane. Now, the first airplane that I owned was a Lancer, and my instructor told me the moment that engine quits, the insurance owns the airplane.
Right.
So don't try to save the airplane. Your whole purpose, your sole purpose, is to land and walk away in the lowest impact possible. And
I'm going to interrupt you briefly there just to say Tony S has said in the chat room there, best avoid UK roads. A ploughed field will be far smoother than most UK roads, to be fair.
I'll agree with that. I flew GA over in the UK and I didn't even like driving on the roads.
No, quite. Indeed. Never mind, it's so I mean, is it just because of the types of road, as you say, because perhaps where you were talking about there, Armando, that the roads are busier, that's maybe why that it's like a no-go, or is it just a so different trainer? Literally as simple as that.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff. They're considered, as we used to say in the military, lines of communication. So roads is where you're going to find light poles, telephone wires, electrical lines, people, street lights. So most of these airplanes, so like a PA-28, if you land it at its slowest speed possible, I think that the stall speed for a PA-28 is probably 48 miles per hour ish. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. If you can slow the airplane down to 48 miles per hour, most of us drive faster than that, even on local roads. So slow it down to its slowest possible minimum controllable airspeed. If you hit dirt, if you hit a UK plowed field, that airplane's actually going to stop in about 250 feet. So if you're at the slowest speed possible, again, as long as in your head you think, once this engine quits, the insurance company owns the airplane, my whole purpose is to walk away. If you hit a plowed field, you're going to stop in a couple hundred feet. And even if there's some trees or a fence line, something at the end of it, I'd rather go for an empty field, know that I'm going to stop in the dirt in just a couple hundred feet, but I will walk away from it as long as it doesn't flip over. Anyway, that's, thoughts from an experienced aviator. He did a great job, by the way, though.
Yeah. There was a short video as well with that, but on there of him talking about that on one of the American news affiliate programs. But he done a good job, and that is one of the first things you are taught when you learn to fly. I know that was one of the very, very first things that I was taught when I started to learn to fly at Beccles was, well, after you take off, you got to know where to put it down when the engine fails.
Yeah, the UK is great. East Anglia is great because there are so many fields.
Yeah,
I would always go for a field. Playing the what if game in my head, I would always go for a field in the UK other than a road, not even a motorway. Just go for the field.
Go for the field. So next story is coming to us from breakingtravelnews.com. Virgin Atlantic. I always thought Virgin Atlantic were part of one of the various things, but obviously not. Virgin Atlantic are joining the SkyTeam Alliance. So SkyTeam, the Global Airline Alliance, and Virgin Atlantic announced in the UK that it will join SkyTeam's newest member in early 2023. Virgin Atlantic will become SkyTeam's first and only UK member airline, enhancing the alliance's transatlantic network and services to and from Heathrow and Manchester Airport. Virgin Atlantic's customers will benefit from a consistent, seamless customer experience across 1,000+ global destinations. They'll also have more opportunities to earn and redeem points across member airlines and access to a network of 750 airport lounges spanning 6 continents. The airline's flying club members will enjoy significant benefits from the day of joining, with a global expansion of the loyalty offering. And Virgin Atlantic Silver card holders will be recognised as SkyTeam Elite members, whilst the airline's Gold card members will become Elite Plus. The recognition provides a raft of benefits, including priority check-in, baggage handling, and boarding. And flying club members will also take advantage of the benefits as soon as Virgin Atlantic officially enrolls in SkyTeam, which is expected early this year. Virgin Atlantic's entry into the alliance builds upon its success of the transatlantic joint venture partnership with Delta Airlines, Air France, and KLM, which already had a long-established SkyTeam, or are long-established SkyTeam members. The 4 partners are located at London Heathrow's Terminal 3, alongside existing SkyTeam members Aeromexico and China Eastern, providing customers with smooth airside transits and the most convenient connection times possible. Walter Cho, SkyTeam chairman, said Virgin Atlantic is synonymous with innovation and excellent service, an iconic British airline with a global outlook, plus customers at the heart of its operations. Like SkyTeam and its members, we are delighted to welcome them to the alliance. Sounds like something out of Star Wars. Virgin Atlantic flies to 12
the Rebel Alliance
through the USA in partnership with Delta, Air France, KLM, including New York, Los Angeles, Miami, and San Francisco. And in May, the airline launched a brand new service to Austin, Texas, and will start daily flights to Tampa in Florida in November. Virgin Atlantic also operates an extensive Caribbean portfolio, including Antigua, Barbados, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. And Virgin Atlantic also operates services to Greater China, India, Israel, Nigeria, Pakistan, and South Africa. SkyTeam members Delta, Air France, KLM are already collated at Virgin Atlantic's home base at Heathrow, and Virgin operates long-haul services from airports in the UK, such as Edinburgh and Manchester. And the airline also offers comprehensive networks to North America, the Caribbean, in partnership with Delta, Air France, and KLM, which also operates services to Greater China. I think we already said this one. Israel, Nigeria, Pakistan, and South Africa. It's a big thing. I honestly thought that Virgin were part of one of the various kind of schemes as such, but because BA is part of the One World network. Yep. So I'm guessing this is just the Sky Team is just a similar kind of.
And they've always had a lot of close cooperation with Delta, in particular, and no, I think that's going to give them a very interesting route network to play with, isn't it?
Agreed.
Yeah, it's
very much agreed.
News. Good news for the passenger as well. It's good to see how the benefits are, especially with the points.
Definitely,
points make prizes. Matt,
or flights anyway. Yeah.
You've got the next story, Matt, and I hope you're feline okay to read this.
Dear, right, I see what you did there. It is on thedailymail.co.uk, where everyone should go for their aviation news. Obviously, cat's out of the bag. Nosy Tabby causes havoc on United flight from Dallas to San Francisco. Catastrophe was averted. Big groan, please. On a domestic flight, United flight, after an amused flight attendant helped reunite an adventurous feline with its owner. The cheeky tabby, which had fled its seat in coach in search of the comforts of first class, oh, it's a classy pussycat then, was plucked from the aisle by a nearby attendant who asked anybody missing a cat. I bet that's not a conversation they expected to have. The hairy escape reportedly occurred on a domestic United Airlines flight travelling from Dallas, Texas to San Francisco, California on the 30th of December. A video captured by a fellow flyer, David Hislop, shows the brave flight attendant. Why? What's the cat going to do? Quite. Where's that coming from? Yes, a brave gingerly walking the snarling cat back down the aisle, warning passengers to watch out as the feline writhes and hisses. Oh dear. Right, okay, yes. Halfway through the cabin, the captive Kitty makes one last attempt for freedom, twisting out of the attendant's arms and fleeing again towards the front of the plane. "Have you lost your cat?" repeats another grinning attendant over the loudspeaker. "She is running around the airplane. We're going to need you to come and claim that." Owner finally identified. The resigned feline is once more carted back to its seat. Escape attempt thwarted. According to Hislop, the cat was first sighted by passengers scrolling. I bet they did a Cat 3 approach. Thanks, Alan. According to United's travel guidelines, pets can travel in the cabin as long as they are within hard or soft-sided carriers that fit beneath the seat in front. The one rule, however, is that they must remain in the carrier with the door closed at all times. While pets are allowed on United flights, if space is available, passengers are required to pay a $125 fee each way. Certain emotional support animals are allowed to accompany flyers for free, but these are strictly classified as specifically trained dogs. A Department of Transportation rule introduced in 2020 now regulates the presence of animals on planes. The restriction, which outlines clear criteria as to the types of service animals allowed on commercial flights, was in response to growing backlash against the outlandish creatures passengers were trying to claim as emotional support animals. Mr. Lanwarn says, "I hope they checked the rudder tabbies." Oh no!
Can I just say, I strongly believe that this cat was friends with Nev, because if you watch that video,
straight to the front, absolutely.
No sooner has she brought it from first class back into the economy cabin,
furious.
It shoots straight back
furious.
to first class.
Absolutely, it could probably smell better food. Richard Adams is saying,
"Well, cat with taste."
Yes, indeed. Richard Adams is saying, cathartic for nervous passengers, perhaps.
Oh,
cathartic. Oh dear, never mind. Anyway,
if you're listening to the audio version of this, come over. So 7:00 British time every Friday night, just to participate in the chat room, because that's definitely the best. I promise I was paying attention, Matt. But really, I was just reading the chat.
You were just
because it was almost catastrophic.
Oh, don't you start.
Richard Adams says that it was probably after Nev's caviar.
Oh, well, good point.
Yes,
good point. Although, once again, I think we would struggle to find Nev on a United flight.
I still can't. You'd never get away with this on a flight here in the UK. If I went on a plane with, I mean, not that Poppy would stand.
Can you imagine?
But if I walked on board with her in my hands, that'd be, "No, you're not getting on board this flight. It's got to go in a cat carrier."
Yeah, indeed.
And that's if you got let on.
Well, presumably it was in a cat carrier and it escaped from the carrier. That's the only thing I can think of. I wonder if the owner had sort of perhaps opened the front door to comfort the animal, perhaps, and then escaped.
Dirk S is saying United Airlines.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Oh dear.
United.
Yes.
United.
Aaron P is saying gives you pause for thought. I mean, we could just spend the whole.
We could go all night, couldn't we? Really,
on cat puns. Yeah.
Have we got a caption this today? We should probably return to this.
I think that's coming back next week. Don't panic, guys.
Oh no.
Anyway, moving on to the next story.
It must have had a passport.
Nev, God, let's move on.
No, okay.
Before anything else, I'll get a cat. I'll find a cat picture for next week's cat.
Right. Okay.
Go back to a serious story with a serious airline.
Right. This is airlining for grown-ups, isn't it?
Unfortunately, it's on the mirror.co.uk.
Oh dear. Can't have everything.
This is about the history of British Airways, but going back to the 1930s when things were somewhat different. Imperial Airways was founded in the mid-20s and would go on to fly from its Croydon base in London to cities across the world, including Brisbane, Bermuda, New York and Hong Kong. In the age of modern air travel, passengers on board even the most budget Ryanair flight can expect a sturdy seat, an armrest and the chance to buy a cup of tea and microwave dinner, as well as access to a toilet. For those early adopters of aircraft,
steady.
The conditions were a little different. On the 31st of March 1924, Imperial Airways, a company which would merge many years later to form British Airways, was launched thanks to a £1 million investment from the government, which brought together its three smaller predecessors. Now, the most far-flung and dangerous corners of the British Empire then were connected by air, slashing journey times in the process. And although the French and German governments had been ploughing money into commercial aviation for some years, the infrastructure beyond Europe was essentially non-existent, prompting Imperial to set about designing routes. A great survey of some of the most hostile, waterless and dangerous areas of the empire was launched in 1925, allowing the airline to build outposts in parts of Africa and Asia, near impossible to visit until that point. Builders were sent out to construct weather services, radio stations, landing grounds, and even a giant furrow ploughed in the desert to help pilots navigate. On March the 30th, 1929, 5 years after the company was formed, its first official flight was flown from Britain to India, according to Sentinel Flight. It was a momentous occasion given the significance of the country in the empire and how many people journeyed between the nations at that time. 8 passengers hopped aboard a de Havilland Hercules trimotor biplane that went through France, Italy, Greece, Egypt, Iraq and India. Whilst slow by modern standards, the route cut the travel time down from 3 weeks via sea to just 1 week by air. By the late 1930s, flight times had been progressively reduced and India could typically be reached in 2.5 days on Imperial Airways flying boat crafts. A promotional map from 1937 showed the rapid expansion of the company, which by then operated routes to Durban, Bermuda, New York, Hong Kong and Brisbane. As radical as the transformation of global travel was, it would remain the reserve of the very wealthy for decades to come, as well as those willing to endure a little hardship. Images from on board one of the airline's early commercial jets shows 2 rows of rattan chairs for passengers to sit on. In-flight meals were fairly similar to today's offering, although may have been more appetizing, with reports that in the 1930s food could typically include cold chicken, fruit salad and sandwiches. One plane in 1925 had long windows running along the wall, which seemed more suitably designed for an Edwardian house rather than an aircraft, which has the potential to crash and needs to cope at varying levels of air pressure. Accidents were, understandably, very frequent. In the first 6 years, 32 people died in 7 accidents, which is not a great rate of return, given that only around 1,000 people were flying with the airline each week by the end of the 1920s. Imperial Airways' dominance of the skies above the empire would come to an end as the 1940s approached, when the UK government ordered the military takeover of most civilian airfields in the UK and stopped all private flying without individual permits. On the 1st of April 1940, Imperial Airways Limited and British Airways Limited, which had formed 4 years earlier, were officially combined into a new state-owned company, British Overseas Airways Corporation, which operated throughout the war. 3.5 decades and several absorptions later, this would become British Airways as we know it today. It's amazing, isn't it? We're worried about being about 5 or 10 minutes late sometimes with our flying and getting to our destination, but it's not that long ago, is it, that the flying was a completely different experience, unreliable and quite dangerous.
No, I completely agree. One of the nice things for me in this is, as you mentioned in that, Nev, and I'm going to pop it up again here. I mean, they literally look like dining room chairs that people, or more patio furniture, I should say. It looks like something that you would find in your modern day your conservatory, to sort of take a seat in. I mean, they're literally just chairs. Fixed. I can say I don't know if they're fixed, but with the next picture, I'll just move it on slightly. As I say, with like what you were saying there, like the curtains. So you've still got your overhead storage, a bit like you would on the train in that time there. But also, I mean, again, let's bear this in mind. This is a time where if you were going to India, it was taking you 3 weeks to get to your destination there. So to literally cut that by 2/3, to sort of turn that into a week. I mean, that must have been very exciting at the time. You know,
Dirk Guess is wondering in the chat room what the lavs looked like on board the aircraft.
probably a bucket, I would imagine,
or just a hole in the bottom of the fuselage.
Possibly, especially in those times. It's I've got a message from somebody who. Let me just see if I can get the image up
While
here.
you do that, Matt, I'm going to open this bottle of Bishop's.
Oh, are you? Oh, right. I beg your pardon.
From the Shepherd Neame Brewery.
Very good.
A good drop, that.
Indeed. I'm just trying. Sorry, I tried to do it. Just chat amongst yourselves for a moment, because this picture that I've been sent is relevant to the conversation
You're right.
we're having.
You're right. Guys, we take for granted a lot of what we do now in the world in regards to flying anywhere, everywhere we want to go, get to it for a minimal, cost. But back then, flying was, for the very rich.
Do we know what the costs were then?
I mean, I suppose if you look at the comparable cost now, I think it was probably incredibly expensive to.
Yeah, I think it was proportional. I think over Christmas and the Christmas break, I took the whole family over to the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum over in Washington, D.C., the one over at the mall, because there's two of them. And one of the coolest displays there is they have the not the first airliners for the big airlines in the U.S., but some of the most iconic airliners. So I think there's a Delta Airlines trimotor, Ford trimotor. There's a Eastern Airlines DC-3. There's a TWA Bell 247, I think it is. And there was a United something weird. It was like some kind of Hughes design. And I love seeing stories like this, because it really was. I mean, the 1930s and 1940s were the golden age of aviation. It was such a classy thing. And I remember being in a museum in Mount Pleasant, Texas, in a Delta Airlines Ford trimotor, and with the wicker seats, the rattan seats like that, but there was actually like sconces. There were gas, lights.
Gas lights, yeah.
Yeah, on the side, right?
What?
So, yeah, and the whole airplane is made out of wood, right? The whole interior is made out of beautiful wood, but they would have actual, these oil lamps as sconces on the side of the airplane that the attendants would take over.
So Captain Cruz has been in touch with what I think it's come from a tweet or maybe even Instagram that it says, and he's put the tag on the bottom of it. Those were the days. I mean, now that is what I call a trolley. That is my idea. That is kind of what I would expect Nev to still experience today. There's a ham on the bone there with some salady bits and pieces. Got a cask ale look for a nice drop of lager or beer. I mean, the seats look 3 times wider than anything we've seen these days. I mean, very comfortable.
It does look very nice.
It is definitely
That's all you need in life, right there is a ham and a keg of beer.
Ham and beer. What more could you possibly need?
Fly around the world with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. There we go. Well done for stalling so long, by the way, Armando. Thank you for that. I'm very grateful.
So next story, Armando, is going back over to the US for this one with you. And it sort of kind of relates to a story we covered before Christmas, all about the NASA's 747 SP that was retired.
Yeah, and continuing the theme of going back in time. So NASA's now getting a Boeing 777. They have been flying a DC-8 as part of its flying observatory missions since 1985. That antique bird, as you can imagine, possesses far too many problems today. So a replacement is well underway, which is a Boeing 777. Newly added, almost 20-year-old wide-body 777-200ER, formerly flew for Japan Airlines, had registration Juliet Alpha 704 Juliet. However, under NASA, the 777 will have a new American registration. The aircraft was restored in Victorville, California from July 2020 up until just December 15th of this year. Last year, I guess, 2022. The jet made its way out of Southern California over to Langley Air Force Base in Southeast Virginia. Now, the DC-8 that they had been flying was a 4-engine jet, heavily modified to aid the agency's science mission. 1969 DC-8. It was acquired by NASA about 15 years later, and it had been housed at the NASA Armstrong's Flight Research Center in Palmdale, California. So according to NASA, it had a range of 5,400 miles and can fly at altitudes from 1,000 up to 42,000 feet for 12 hours. The space agency also stated that the data gathered from the aircraft at altitudes through remote sensing units have been used in studies in archaeology, ecology, geography, hydrology, meteorology, oceanography, volcanology, atmospheric chemistry, cryospheric science, soil science, and biology.
All of the ologies, all of them.
That's pretty good after 3 bourbons.
Very good. Sorry,
let me push the PTUK mug, which is also great for bourbon.
Interesting that you've gone for that and not the military version, by the way.
That's because I just used it this morning.
Okay, right. Well, not with bourbon, I hope.
Either way, the 4 types of missions that had been flown with the DC-8, which will be taken over by the 777, sensor development, satellite sensor verification, space vehicle launch and re-entry telemetry data retrieval, optical tracking, and, basic research studies of the Earth's surface and atmosphere. Simple things. Things we all do on the weekend.
Well, quite, yeah. One of the things that was interesting, producer John put in the notes there, is interested in why NASA didn't go for an already US registered Boeing 777 based in the US already.
Money, 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 money.
Okay, fair enough. Say no more. And we'll leave it there. Carlos, I think you're next.
I did wonder that when I picked that story, and I thought, with all the aircraft they've got over in the boneyard.
Well, they've got deserts full of them, haven't they? I mean,
full of American registered 777s that just sitting there.
Yeah.
Some of which are probably younger than 20 years old.
Yeah.
Yet they chose this 20-year-old
Japan Air one.
Japan Airlines 777.
Do you think a relations exercise, maybe?
No, we actually don't know if it was in Japan, so they may have mothballed it, and it was probably in storage in the southeast United States.
Okay, right, yeah.
Lots of airlines will store their aircraft. I know if you go to Roswell, there's Korean Airlines 747s. If you go to Victorville, all the world's airlines will store their aircraft, or maybe it had been sold off already by Japan Airlines, and it was just being stored, by one of these outfits.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I don't think it was actually flown from Japan.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
So the next story, and it wouldn't be a PTUK show if we didn't have a story about someone kicking off and having a fight on board an aircraft. So this one from the dailymail.co.uk, a wild moment when we're going to Australia for this one, so Grant, if you're listening, wild moment when a Virgin Australia pilot is forced to leave the cockpit and wrestle with an enraged passenger. I must just point out this was on the ground, not in the air. A Virgin Australia pilot has been forced to leave the cockpit and wrestle with an enraged passenger before booting him off the flight. The pilot had to physically shove the aggressive man off the plane after a fierce air hostess took him on while he refused to cooperate. The plane was due to depart from Townsville Airport in Queensland, but it appeared to be delayed after the man, who was a passenger, claimed he'd had one too many, refused to accept his fate. The man, who wore yellow Crocs, obviously that's incredibly offensive.
That's always a warning sign,
was told, "You're off, mate," or "You're off, mate," as he struggled against the pilot and continued to protest. The air hostess and a member of the public then helped the pilot push him towards the doors of the aircraft. "Don't blinking well touch me, you stupid Wally," the man was heard yelling from the outside. Obviously, I've
edited for broadcast.
Edited that out. The female air hostess then raised her finger in a warning to the unruly passenger as the pilot told the young man to stop swearing. Obviously, Wally is just a terrible word to use.
Good point.
A Virgin spokesperson told the Daily Mail Australia that the safety of all guests and crew are a number one priority, as they always are, and we have a zero tolerance for any type of unruly behaviour on board Virgin Australia flights. Incidents are referred to the Australian Federal Police or State Police where appropriate, and it's understood travel restrictions have been imposed on the passenger in question.
I should hope so.
Viewers were quick to applaud the crew for how they handled the situation, and one passenger was said or heard saying, "Damn, the crew did an amazing job. They shouldn't have to deal with this." That female flight attendant was fiercely awesome, one wrote. Well done to the crew, even though they were trained for this. It's still awful to deal with this, she also commented. They also said he'll love catching the bus to his future holiday destinations, another wrote. And another person said, cabin crew do not deserve behaviour like this. Thank goodness for the pilot for stepping in. Another viewer also wrote. And now, obviously, Matt, show the video then on the screen there for those of you watching in YouTube world. And
well, Matt, you got to throw up Alan's comment in the chat room while you're doing that. I love that the flight attendant, who was probably 6 inches taller than the pilot, also got in there, and she got just as spicy, feisty as the pilot. That's
indeed,
cool.
Yeah. Is that reaction called fight or flight? Is what Alan is suggesting. Yeah, probably a bit of both. I think.
Fighter.
Yeah, he'll probably be having to make other travel arrangements for.
I'm with Dirk. I'm with Dirk on this one. By the way, he was obviously removed for wearing yellow Crocs. I do think that is a crime against aviation, fashion, life in general, pretty much everything. Indeed.
Now, next story. Armando must have slipped this one in here.
Yeah,
I think, because I haven't seen this one in here.
What is interesting is I had also not seen. Oh yes, I did.
That's good.
Right.
I mean, it might have been producer John, of course, because he was
wasn't me.
tinkering with the notes at
I've
the
done
end.
the notes this week.
Yeah.
As we all have our surprise deer look to.
Yes. Startled.
No, this is a pretty cool story. It's another 777 story. Air travel, global connectivity, boosting economies, trades, tourism, all that stuff, right? But there's one thing unique to air travel that travelers can do, and that's time travel.
I'm sorry, what?
Exactly, that's what I thought. So this is what happened just this last week on 2 different United Airlines flights. So although they had already rung in the new year, 2023, in one part of the world, they would actually get another chance to do the exact same thing somewhere else when they landed back on December 31st. So this particular time traveling flight that we're going to talk about is United 858. Nonstop flight is typically flown on Mondays, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, connecting Shanghai to San Francisco via a stopover in Seoul. On December 31st, United 858 departed from Pudong International Airport at approximately 2038 on the 31st. And then it arrived at Incheon International Airport at 2254, also on the 31st. So after ringing in the new year at midnight, United 858 departed from the airport an hour and a half later and was flying at over 9,100 kilometers west past the international date line, and it arrived back at San Francisco basically the day prior, allowing passengers to soak in the final hours of the last day of 2022 all over again. So some time traveling flights have grown increasingly common over the last couple of years. It's typically more uncommon to see more than one such flight happening with the same airline. So while we just talked about United 858, there was actually a second flight, United 200, that was doing daily service between Guam and Daniel Inouye International Airport in Hawaii. And on January 1st, UA 200 departed Guam at 7:40 in the morning, flew 6,100 kilometers eastward, arrived in Honolulu at 7:22 p.m. the day before. So there you go. Sounds like something that Dr. Steph would do, just with all her sky miles and her money and her status, where she would want to ring in the new year twice by being in different parts of the world, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good old time travel. Do you remember that movie called Millennium?
Yeah. As the lead guy on that was Chris Christopherson.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Had the guy with the beard.
Wow,
brilliant film. Really, really. If you've not seen it, it's such a good film.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
good.
for a film of its time, the special effects were pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you got to go back to like 1984 when that came out or something like that.
Gosh.
Yeah, good film, good film.
Wow. Okay. So we have got one more, I see.
We have got one more, and it wouldn't be the first show of 2023 without our top 10. And we haven't had the top 10.
We know the top 10. Yeah, we've got two here as well, by the look of it.
Yeah, so Nev, what are we looking at here, Nev?
Well, it's the most punctual airlines in 2022, and I can't wait to see where British Airways.
Quite, absolutely. Indeed.
It's going to be a surprise to everybody.
Indeed. All right. Well, if everybody's ready, then we'll do the usual.
Should we start from number 10?
Yeah. In 10.
That's American Airlines with 78.29% punctuality based on over 1 million flights.
In 9.
It's Qatar.
One of those.
78.32% punctuality.
In 8.
80.46%, I think, officially counts as a B. That's United Airlines.
In 7.
Is Emirates with 81.3% punctuality based on nearly 138,000 flights.
That's a big number, isn't it? In 6.
It's Avianca with 83.48% punctuality.
In 5.
Weird. Did we plan it this way? I got all the U.S. airlines. 83.63% Delta Airlines.
In 4.
LATAM at 86.31% based on 451,000 flights.
In 3.
Number 3, Japan Airlines, 88% punctuality.
In 2.
Well, I just ruined my streak, but this airline did not at 88% punctuality. All Nippon Airways, ANA.
And Bully's special prize.
At number 1 is Azul Brazilian Airlines with 88.93% punctuality based on 279,722 flights.
Wow. Okay, we'll move on then straight into the top performing global airports of 2022.
Airports.
And for me, there's a big surprise here in 10.
That's
Has
Charlotte
to be.
Douglas. Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. I talked over you. Thank you.
How could you steal that from me?
I'm so sorry.
He's in Charlotte and everything.
Right down the street, the
Go on
Charlotte.
then, Armando. Go on, just do it.
I'll do it again. Here we go. In 10.
You ruined it. Charlotte Douglas International Airport, one of the best airports in the world with its rocking chairs. 80%.
In 9.
Nev?
It's El Dorado International Airport in Bogota, 80.72% punctuality.
In 8.
Wasn't that a series on ITV, I guess, though? Anyway.
No, the BBC One, dear. It was tea
BBC
time.
One, sorry.
Yeah, it was the neighbour's
Seattle.
replacement. Yeah.
Number 8 was Seattle Tacoma International Airport in Washington with 81.04% punctuality.
In 7.
81.84% punctuality. Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi.
I'm so glad you had that one. In 6.
It's at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport in Minnesota with 81.95% punctuality.
In 5.
And I don't like the cheese, but it's Philadelphia International Airport, Pennsylvania with 82.54% punctuality.
In 4.
The Golden Crown of Michigan. 82% Detroit Airport.
In 3.
And Salt Lake City is up there in Utah at 83.87% punctuality.
In 2.
Oh, I knew I'd get this one. It's Kempegowda International Airport in Bangalore, India, with 84.08% punctuality.
And Bully's special prize.
Sorry, 84% also the accuracy to which you pronounce that. At 90% punctuality, we feature it almost every week on the show. That's Tokyo's Haneda Airport.
90.33%.
That's
I
pretty
mean,
good.
that just shows, because Japan, honestly, they do stuff well.
So I've got some issues with this. One of the things that is in the notes in the bottom here, quite rightly, there are no European airlines or airports that appear in this. Now, is that perhaps because this particular survey is biased? Maybe because it was done by CNN, but it was done by CNN, so perhaps they didn't. Perhaps Americans don't like Europe. Let's be honest. They don't like to. Yeah, but Europe is a very foreign country as far as you guys are concerned. Europe is the country as far as a lot of Americans.
I'm not even responding to this. We're gonna cut that out in post.
Just be happy, Armando, that Charlotte Douglas made it into the top 10.
Top 10, that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of our little city here. The Crown.
But hold on, Armando, where the hell is Atlanta?
Oh, you know what? I think Atlanta just has so much traffic in there that it would be almost impossible to get in there. But I don't know, maybe. What do I know? I'm not an airport guy.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough.
Anyway, moving swiftly on with the show, we've got. Don't forget to stay tuned to the show because we have got our Christmas competition questions to announce again on the show. We're going to extend it until next week when we're going to draw the names out of the hat to win our very, very special tags, which we'll show you later on in the show. So questions for them coming up later on. But first, we'll hand things over to Armando.
Okay. Well, we are just scooting along right through the show, and this next part is obviously the best part. Matt, let's pull that ejection handle.
Lost up bogeys 135, 50, Angel 16, heading 340. Okay, now undersea bogeys.
Now, before you launch into it, Armando, I just wanted to say you mentioned Jonathan Warner earlier. Lots of mugs were delivered over Christmas, and I'm pleased to say that this one arrived in Mr. Warner's hands, I'm pleased to say, over Christmas. He is currently watching the show with this in hand, you'll be pleased to know. Mac is proudly there with all the details. If you want to get your hands on one of these mugs, by the way, it's got some great captions on the side as well. Here, it says, I only listen for the grey stuff, which is very much what both Armando and Jonathan Warner do. So,
and Nev, as we established on the New Year's show.
True. That is true. Yeah. Anyway, do carry on, dear boy.
Well, I will say I wasn't originally supposed to be here on the show, but I pre-recorded some of the military stories. Matt, if you're ready, go ahead and hit that button.
So this first military story is from defensenews.com, and some of you may have already seen the video that surfaced online already that was released by the U.S. Department of Defense, but a couple weeks ago now, the Pentagon released a video showing a Chinese fighter jet intercepting a U.S. Air Force RC-135 rivet joint reconnaissance aircraft. Now, we've talked about this aircraft before. It's essentially a signals platform, an electronic warfare platform. There's just over a dozen of them that are based at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. They fly all over the world, basically sustaining the intelligence mission, the strategic intelligence mission, sometimes tactical intelligence for the U.S. Department of Defense. These flights are pretty commonplace, especially in the Pacific, off the Chinese coast, the Korean coast, amongst other places in the world. The People's Liberation Army Navy pilot was flying a J-11 and flew right in front of the RC-135. According to the Department of Defense, it flew within 20 feet of the RJ's nose. That's was actually put out in a statement by the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. Now, another U.S. military spokesperson said that the Chinese fighter actually came about 10 feet from the wing, pretty close formation, before actually moving to the front of the RC-135. And at that point, they determined that 20 feet from the nose of the RC-135, which is a 707, it was more riskier than it should have been. Intercepts are pretty normal, just as are the reconnaissance flights. Intercepting them is also normal, and usually these kinds of intercepts take place at a safe distance. They identify each other. Sometimes they talk to each other. Sometimes they don't talk to each other, but there's a mutual respect that goes on, and it rarely becomes a dangerous thing. Now, if you guys remember, a few years ago now, there was an EP-3, a U.S. Navy EP-3 that was intercepted by a Chinese aircraft, and that aircraft actually hit the nose of the P-3. I think both the pilot survived, the fighter jet pilot survived, and the crew of the P-3 was able to put it down on Hainan Island. You can go back and look at some historical pictures of that. Pretty amazing airmanship from the entire crew, especially when you're not expecting to land in China and you've just been collecting intelligence on them. But either way, this is kind of an interesting. I think Matt's going to show the video here in a second, but it happens regularly. But when it gets dangerous, it's just an unneeded risk that nobody needs to deal with. So bad on the Chinese pilot, good on the American pilots. I don't know, I always say that, but I'm glad it just didn't turn out into a serious event, as has happened in the past.
Okay, the geek in me. So great story as always, and you'll summarise for us in a moment, Armando. But the little box to the your left hand side of your head, I am absolutely fascinated as to what that is, because it looks like it looks like a sat nav but without a screen, basically.
I'm happy to hear that that's what you took away from that story.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's a Garmin GDL32. It's just that is an ADS-B device, an ADS-B in specifically, so that allows us to see traffic and weather, amongst some other things, real-time weather on our iPads.
Tony says it's a speed detector.
That's actually kind of funny because I've broken a couple speed limits here and there.
Okay.
Well, geez, I guess this is a public podcast, so
yeah.
Disregard. My friend Larmando Marion has broken some speed limits here and there in the hawker.
Quite indeed. I have yes. I'm sorry that my only takeaway from that was that, but it's the tech geek in me can't resist. It's like, oh, that's a box I don't know. What is that?
Do you remember those really bulky plug-in 12-volt things you used to stick on your windscreen on your car years ago?
Yeah. Oh, the speed,
the speed camera
detecting the infrared, wasn't it, of the Gatso cameras and stuff.
I bet Nev had them in his XR2.
There's a couple similar devices out there, but actually, this, I guess, technically a plug for the Appario Stratus. The Stratus 3S actually has ADS-B in, as well as a cabin altitude detector and attitude heading and reference system. So you can actually, on an experimental aircraft or in a certified aircraft, you can't replace the primary instruments, but with these little devices, which cost, I don't know, $800, you can suction cup it to the window, you can hard mount it to the airplane, and essentially have a full glass cockpit in your airplane. Which is pretty cool.
Again, sorry, completely off topic. This is not obviously what you were expected to be talking about in the military.
It's good stuff.
But there's no screen there, if you see what I mean. So is there like, are you essentially saying that within the glass cockpit that you're referring to there, that there's like a SCART in, so that you could, or a HDMI in, where you can just sort of plug in?
Not at all. It is actually just displayed on your iPad.
Oh, okay. Wi-Fi type sort of thing, or Bluetooth.
It's a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth signal.
Yeah.
And I'll show you quickly here.
Sorry, I completely sidetracked the military. I do apologize.
Now, this is what it would look like on an iPad. So this is just a regular 9-inch iPad. So you have all your traffic, your route, your weather all coming in, and then you have with something like a Stratus, you had attitude and heading reference. So as you tilt and fly the airplane, it actually gives you airspeed, altitude, and attitude.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for indulging my nerdiness. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, very techy.
No problem at all. And that's what a RC-135 rivet joint does.
Bless you.
That was the story that just played out.
Okay, right. So once I saw the box, that was it. I was asking you questions while it was being played out. So, yes, do summarise it for me because I'm a muppet.
The military story that we just played out was actually
yes.
an RC. Yeah, it was an RC-135 that got intercepted by a Chinese fighter jet. And well, I don't want to rehash the story there, but
They fly around here all the time, Matt, and you cannot miss them because they are the weirdest looking planes.
Oh, really?
You'll ever see. Yeah, if you see one, they're a 4-engine plane. They're based on a 707, but the nose of the aircraft, rather than being just a normal nose of like what you'd associate with the normal commercial passenger aircraft.
Yeah.
On the rivet joint one, it's got like a huge nose that sticks out the front, so you cannot miss it when it flies. And they do fly over here, quite regularly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So next story, Armando. What we got next?
Next one, we're going over to the UK, and we just talked about the Red Arrows over the New Year's show, but this is the Red Arrows signing a deal for getting some new airplanes.
Now, this next military story is from the Mirror UK, where we get all of our military stories there in the UK. But the British defense chiefs have just signed a $9 billion deal in the quest for a new Red Arrows airplane. Now, we've talked about the Red Arrows over the holidays, and we aired out that interview with Doug Smith, their team manager. But the defense chiefs had signed this deal, a research effort, paving the way for the Red Arrows to find their replacement aircraft. Now, in July of last year, there were reports that for the first time ever, the RAF Red Arrows might have to fly a foreign-made aircraft. They were kind of talking about that because the Hawks are supposed to be retired by 2030. Now, the Ministry of Defense has signed a contract with a Bristol-based company, Aeralis, as a kind of a £9 billion down payment on a new generation of aircraft. This will give the MOD access to digital engineering support and some data which could in turn lead to the firm producing a family of light military aircraft. According to some sources, they would be fully British designed, engineered, and manufactured, which would be the first British-made military jet since the Hawk, originally made by Hawker Siddeley, which I am sitting on a Hawker Siddeley 125, now known as a Hawker 800 XP, 850 XP. So there you go. Some industry experts are saying that this is a good move, and of course, we want to make sure that the Red Arrows succeed and have the right airplane to do their outstanding air shows. As much as I love the Thunderbirds, as much as I love the Blue Angels, controversy, the Red Arrows is always my favorite display team.
So does this mean that you have to give up your American citizenship for liking the Red Arrows more? I don't.
Luckily, I'm retired from the United States Air Force, so I don't get my demoted for saying that the Red Arrows are my favorite air show. I really do like them. They're just something special about the Red Arrows. I mean, the Blue Angels are really good at what they do. The Thunderbirds are almost as good as what they do. But there's just something about the Red Arrows show that has always been interesting to me. I think it's because they're more approachable.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to knock my own countrymen in my own service, but man, dealing with the Thunderbirds is a pain in the butt.
Okay, controversial.
Remember that one.
Yeah,
it's a great. They put on a great show, but the logistics, they require volunteers, they require security, they require vehicles, and that's all kind of the burden is placed on the base that they're going to go do the show at.
Right.
And man, we're just busy. People are busy. We don't have time to chop off 30 people and 40 people to go help the Thunder Chickens go do their show. And
right.
So, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
They put on a great show. I'm not knocking them, especially By the way, we're going to have a special guest on this spring who was the squadron commander of the Thunderbird. So
right. Okay. So get it out of your system now. That's what I'm suggesting, Armando. Get it out of your system now. That's definitely the way forward. It's. I mean, my experience again, as you say, like they always seem to. We don't seem to have. I mean, we've been very lucky that was it Mike, I think, that we interviewed, who was an ex Red Arrows with the blades. Yeah, and that was really sort of quite fascinating and stuff. And Nev, you guys actually had an interview with one of the Red Arrows, obviously when you were in Jersey as well.
Yeah, well, Carlos interviewed Doug Smith, didn't he? Who was the manager of the team, which was fascinating.
Really good. It's clever, brilliant stuff. So they are definitely approachable. Then I suppose, but that's the Will is saying he actually knows Jim Patterson, formerly of Red One. There you go. Oh, Will, I need to tap you up for that. Let's get an interview. I'd love an interview. We need to get an interview with a current pilot. That's your mission. Should you choose to accept it?
As much as the Red Arrows are fantastic, and we've all seen the Red Arrows at air shows across the globe, and the UK here especially. I do believe, and I know Jonathan Warner will 100% agree with me here, I do believe it is time they did have a replacement aircraft.
Ooh, controversial.
That's military story number 4, sir.
Oh, okay.
I'm glad to see you've read the show notes.
Okay, anyway, moving on. Story number 3. And,
hashtag awkward. Yeah.
This one comes to us from defensenews.com and firstpost.com. We covered this story actually just before the Christmas show, actually, wasn't it? The Pentagon grounds some F-35s after the ejection on the Texas runway. The F-35 Joint Program Officers grounded a small number of the newer F-35 Joint Strike Fighters in response to the December 15th incident in which a hovering fighter crashed on a runway at Texas and the pilot ejected. Now, we did cover that story on the show. In a statement to Defence News on Tuesday, the F-35 Joint Program Office confirmed it's issued a guidance as a result of the incident that some higher risk F-35s are grounded at least until January. The JPO, which said the guidance was dated Thursday, declined to specify how many F-35s are unable to fly. And the video of the F-35B crash earlier in December at Naval Station Joint Reserve Base Fort Worth, Texas, and its pilot's successful ejection on the ground quickly went viral on social media. And we did also have that video on the show as well when we done that story. Lockheed Martin builds the vast majority of the F-35s at its facility in Fort Worth, and the company had not yet transferred the new F-35B to the US government when the crash occurred. Pratt & Whitney makes the F-135's propulsion systems that power all variants of the F-35s, and the US Air Force pilot who was performing quality checks on the F-35 being questioned that we covered for the Defense Contract Management Agency can be seen hovering the fighter jet not far above the ground in the video, and then this fighter descends, bounces off the ground, tips forward on its nose, and the right wing touches the ground, and the fighter starts to spin round in a pirouette. If you watch the video, you'll see it on there. The JPO would not say what caused the grounded F-35s to be deemed a higher risk, and a source familiar with the program who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss details of the incident said the initial assessment of the investigation, which is being conducted by the Naval Air Systems Command with the support of JPO, found that a propulsion system issue led to the 15th of December crash of the hovering F-35B, which has now led to a broader grounding of the fleet. The source said in guidance to the services, the JPO said a failure of a tube used to transfer high-pressure fuel in the F-135's engine prompted the office to update its safety risk assessments. Not a great year for the F-35 back in 2022, Armando, I must say.
No, it also made up about 22% of our military news coverage for the year. Between, mishaps and whatnot. But yeah, a little bit nebulous on this one. They're just not really saying what they think the cause is. And additionally, I saw an extra story that Israel had grounded 11 of its F-35s based on some of the initial findings from that crash there in Texas. So now the F-35, the Israelis fly an F-35I, which is based on the F-35A, which is a land-based This incident was with an F-35B, but I think it's powered by the same engine. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this.
Okay, I mean, you lost me at F-35B, I'll be honest, but...
Jonathan Warner in the chat room says, am I alone here in thinking the B model is a pointless in today's air forces?
Oh, there we go. There's a nice picture of it. Look, there you go. Mr. Warner's paying the game, by the way. He's sending me pictures as the stories.
It looks nice, and I've said it once, and I'll say it again on the show, and I'm not the military expert here. Armando is. I still think the F-22 looks so much more sexier than the F-35.
Yeah, they're both cool looking airplanes. This I was listening over to APG and this B model with its for the fan, where the fan is in the middle for the vertical takeoff, opens up. I think it was either Jeff or Nick that were talking. Wouldn't that look great with a big American flag in there? Yeah. Anyway, F-35 is not a good year. Like Micah's saying, everybody's just happy.
Captain Crew says the only good B is the B1. There you go.
The B1 Lancer.
Yeah,
that's Warner's favourites.
That's got a spotted history too. I remember when the Lancer had some back problems. All the structural, the fuselage had some real problems that they had to address a couple years ago. But anyways, talking about
bring back the Harrier.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, no surprises on what's coming up next, Armando.
No, I was actually making fun of Carlos because wait, don't we have play the next video? Let's see what it is.
Okay, right. I see what you did there.
And this last military story from the aviationist.com, the 40th Flight Test Squadron at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida took possession of the first two government-owned Kratos XQ-58A Valkyries, which are low-cost, high-performance unmanned aerial vehicles. The Autonomous Aircraft Experimentation Team was established within this unit to use the XQ-58 and the Eglin range for further developmental ground and flight testing. So until now, the Valkyries testing has been carried out at the Yuma Proving Ground out in Arizona, which is actually run by the Army, with the aircraft owned by its maker, which is Kratos Defense. Now at Eglin, because military ownership of the XQ-58 is new, much of the aircraft's infrastructure and logistics have to be created from the ground up and will be recorded, according to one of the spokespersons from Eglin Air Force Base. Now, the resources that are available at the Air Force-owned Eglin military range are a major reason why the XQ-58 found a home there on the Northwest Florida range. The Eglin range has communication support infrastructure that is going to allow some engineers at ground stations at its central control facility to monitor the vehicle's performance during flight. Additionally, some autonomous aircraft operations, very controlled military airspace there, and safety processes have all been developed to ensure the safe and effective flight testing for these uncrewed aerial vehicles. Now, the Valkyrie was instrumental already for multiple Air Force test activities in recent years. Back in 2020, the drone acted as a data link and a translator between an F-22 and an F-35, while in 2021 it was actually launched from the weapons bay of it launched from its weapons bay a smaller drone, which was an Altius 600, known as the Air Launched Effect, ALE. Some spokespersons described this new round of tests as time critical, with a lot of testing to get done in a short period of time. Their goal is that the testing will be complete by the fall of 2023 in order to operationalize the XQ-58. So additionally, the team is building out data storage and a simulation environment to capture operator feedback, integrate the operator's inputs into the autonomy software processes, which is one of the things that is unique about this XQ-58, is that we'll actually have somewhere between machine learning and artificial intelligence, but it's essentially going to be an autonomous unmanned aerial vehicle. So all that data is going to be captured there at the Eglin test range. The Air Force Research Lab, which I used to be part of, the AFRL is working with multiple industry partners to integrate leading edge autonomy capabilities into this aircraft. And then, of course, with modern technology, they're going to have simulation capabilities, and they'll be able to really put the XQ-58 through its paces there at Eglin in Florida before they send it overseas somewhere. Really interesting. Go to theaviations.com, check out some of the pictures. It's kind of an awesome looking little drone. I saw a mock-up of this when my wife and I were over in Colorado Springs, and we went to the Air Force Falcons football game there at the Air Force Academy, and they actually had an XQ-58 sitting on a stand, a mock-up. Not as big as you would think, but actually pretty cool looking airplane. So we'll see what happens with this, and then kind of track it. Eglin is a big Air Force Material Command test base. Lots of testing goes on there. Some other day we'll talk about some of the cool things that they do at Eglin Air Force Base. But this next generation unmanned aerial vehicle coming out.
There we go. It
does look stunning, I must say. The XQ-58. It looks the part.
Oh yeah, it's full on. Oh man, what was that Sylvester Stallone movie where they're?
Well, quite.
It's not Demolition Man.
No, I know the one you're on about.
Yeah, it's definitely futuristic looking. Like I said there in the story, Megan and I were at the Air Force football game up in Colorado Springs, and they had a mock-up of one of these. It was pretty cool looking. This is great. This is what happens when I pre-record the military. And you guys just go on autopilot. So sometimes I just feel like it's me and Jonathan Warner,
pretty much, yeah,
having a beer, listening to some Grey stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's only us. As I say, this is the trouble because Armando's been here. As I say, because he's very good, bless him, and he does record them in case he's not able to join us. And quite often you're not able to, aren't you? Because plans change last minute. So unfortunately, he's experienced first. Thank you. Alfie agrees. He experiences first. What happens?
I recorded those yesterday because there was, as Carlos was stalking me. I mean, tracking me. He was also communicating with me. We were supposed to leave Miami at like 12:30 Eastern time, and 2 hours later was when we finally departed. So I had an extra 2 hours of sitting in the airplane with the APU on and the air conditioning going, just waiting for our passengers to show up. So it's the opposite.
Video call.
Yeah, we did have I got a chance to chat with Gemma, but it's the opposite of commercial flying, right? So like the airlines don't wait for you to show up. If you show up late, you're donezo.
But if you're a private pilot, it's completely opposite.
Completely opposite. We are just there, burning a good 200 pounds of fuel per hour until they show up.
Wow. Okay.
Just with the APU.
Yeah.
So
mind you, I guess if you could afford to be privately chauffeured, he says, probably using the wrong word.
Well, it's their airplane.
But exactly as you say, if you're being discharged with the sort of like you just, if you can afford to have a private flight, you can afford to make the pilot wait. This is the thing. I suppose that is so at that this sorry nerd mode. At that point, are you still technically on the clock? So could you potentially run out of flying time at that point? When do you technically clock on and clock off?
It gets a little shady there because as Part 91, we have we don't have very strict crew duty day limits.
Right.
If you're doing a charter, you do. If you're flying for an airline, you do.
Yeah.
But as a Part 91 private owner flight, we don't really have a lot of flight limits. Now we still have them, but still a 2-pilot crew. It's a lot longer day. We the pilots are free to say, hey, we're fatigued, we're exhausted, we're not flying. If you don't show up in the next hour, we're going to spend the night here. But this is a secret negotiation and conversation that has been taking place. Is now that the good-looking Lieutenant Colonel Jeff is flying corporate, and Pip and myself are all flying corporate. It would be a great episode. I know we always talk about military specials, but I would actually love to do a business aviation special with those two guys.
Yeah.
And kind of talk about this
Yeah.
Hidden part of aviation.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating. Absolutely, yeah.
And on that note as well, it was talked about just before Christmas, and it is going to happen. I know someone mentioned it in the chat room earlier on this evening just as we started the show. We are going to be putting together a special flight sim episode of the show where I'm going to get together with Stuart Aslett, who does a lot of flight simming at home, as I've been today. And we are going to do a special episode on the show, all based on flight sim and what our thoughts are on the current two big players, as in X-Plane 11, X-Plane 12, and Microsoft Flight Sim. So we are going to put that together. So if you are, on that note, if you are a big simmer at home, if you've got a setup and you do your flight simming at home, feel free to send us an email if you want to be a part of the show. Yeah. I know Armando is going to join us for that one as well, because Armando does his own bit of home simming.
Does he?
Using X-Plane. So yeah, we're going to put a little special episode together of that coming up later on this year.
Yeah, get in touch. It's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Now, going from virtual into the real world here, I thought you were going to say a military special hosted by Nev. Mr. Warner was suggesting there.
Short show.
Short, brief show. While we'll move from the virtual into the real world, Nev. Now, you had what I can only describe as a challenging experience very recently, flying.
Yeah, that's just something that's never happened. Well, it hasn't happened for a long time, actually. Flying out to Amsterdam on Wednesday morning with the wonderful British Airways and the in-flight lead lady called Jill, who I got chatting to as well on the aircraft, and Captain Steve, which was brilliant. But the winds in Amsterdam were extremely strong, and they were coming out of the south-southwest. So actually that really restricted where they could land on the airport. Obviously, Schiphol's got so many runways, you think, well, there wouldn't be a problem at all. But
is it 5?
It's got a quick diagram of the airport itself, and it's got plenty of runways. You think, well, what's the problem there? Normally, you'd be landing on the what's called the Polderbahn runway, which is 18 right, which is on the left-hand side of your picture there. No trouble with that is it's about a 25-minute taxi to the main terminal, so it's a long way out. So we actually we couldn't leave straight away because there was so many restrictions on the number of aircraft allowed in the terminal area. So we ended up landing on runway 24. Which I've never done before, and it was extremely bumpy. All the way down, actually up until about the last 500 feet. The actual landing itself wasn't bumpy at all, but it was just one of those days where there was extremely stiff breeze coming out of the south to southwest. So it's the first time I've ever landed on that runway.
Wow!
But, at least they've got the runway there to do it, but of course, they need to control the flow of traffic into there because there's potential for go-arounds, and also by using that runway, it means they can't use some of the other runways as well. So
true.
But yes, that was all very interesting. But no, great flight as always with them. And it was nice to have a chat with Jill, because what happened was we actually pushed off the gate at Heathrow and then just on one engine, and then just shut down in a remote part of the airfield because we had to wait for about 45 minutes because of the delay. But it was really good, and really enjoyed the flight. We weren't actually that late in the end, as it turned out, but it was all good. So I thought I'd share that with you.
Indeed, I'm surprised to hear the words bumpy.
Oh, it was extremely bumpy. Extremely.
They borrowed the runway from the A12.
Yes,
possibly. Yeah, possibly. Oh dear.
So it's competition time, and your chance to win one of 3 tags, or you can enter to win whichever tag you wish to win. Basically, Nev has got the questions for you. I've got the tags here with me. So the first tag is a 747 tag, and here we go. I'll pop that in there. Nev,
so this is
how can I win this one?
So there's 3 tags up for grabs, up for winning, and this is the British Airways 747-400, which is registration Golf Bravo Yankee Golf Alpha. The question is, what year was Laker Airways founded? What year was Laker Airways founded? The next tag we have is from the Airbus A400M. The question for this one is, what aircraft was the V-22 Osprey developed from? What aircraft was the V-22 Osprey developed from?
Oh, I know the answer.
No.
Well, I hope you didn't know the answer.
It's not my turn. Okay.
No, next week. Next week you could.
And finally, we've got the F4 Phantom tag. And the question for this one is, on the 6th of December 1959, the second XF4H-1 Phantom performed a zoom climb to a world record height. What was that height? And we'll accept your answer in feet or meters. The question again, on the 6th of December 1959, the second XF4H-1 Phantom performed a zoom climb to a world record height. What was that height?
So just for the benefit of those watching, the tags, here we go. I'll just quickly show them in front of the camera because they are quite unique. We've got the 747 tag here, which is cut from the rudder section of the aircraft here, which looks pretty cool. But the honeycomb section there. The A400M, there we go. There's that one there. This is number 10 of 50 that was cut from the aircraft. Again, the honeycomb section. So that's number 10 out of 50 of those. And then the F4 Phantom one, Black Bunny, which we've got here. There's 50 of these cut. This is number 8 of the 50 that were cut. We'll put it in front of the camera. They'll be able to see that. There we go. There's the tag there. So in with a chance of winning one of those, just answer the questions and email them to us on the show.
And yes, you have to send them by email. Don't put them in the chat room. So the email address, as always, podcast@planetalkinguk.com.
And we'll announce the winners on next week's show. So get those answers in via email to us here at the show. They're easy to find out, trust me. Good old Google is your help there if you need any help. Yeah, whichever tag you want to win, whether it be the F4 Phantom, which I know Jonathan Warner will probably put 16 answers in for that one, so he gets a chance of winning that one, and the A400M as well, obviously, and the 747 if you want to win that tag. All the answers send in there. It's as easy as that. So, quick round robin. What's everyone up to next week before we finish the show? We'll start with you, Nev. What are you up to next week?
No flying next week. Just very busy for work. We're back out on the road again, doing lots of things. We've got a very big exhibition coming up in Barcelona at the end of the month. So I'm off there for a week. That's our big show that we do in Europe every year. A lot of prep work required for that, and lots of contacting customers, make sure they're coming and this sort of stuff. So yes, we're very busy, but more domestic travelling, I'm pleased to say.
Indeed.
And Matt, what are you up to next week?
Not a lot really. My job has changed slightly, so I'm going to be on the phones this week, which I'm not thrilled about, but there we are. So there are lots of learning, doing a slightly different role to the one that I'm normally used to. So yeah, that'll be unusual.
And Armando, where can I stalk you next week?
Nice.
Sorry, should I tell you, or should I just let you find out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Make it more challenging for him. Yeah.
I'll be in the Hawker on Sunday for 4 or 5 legs, and then Monday and Wednesday I'll be in the Pilatus, going to our corporate pilot's favorite place to go, Teterboro, New Jersey. So I got an overnight there.
Nice.
A little bit of flying.
Nice. Sounds good.
Yeah. And I'll be back to driving. Hopefully next week. Back to work. Get rid of this dreaded man flu. I'll be back on to firing on all cylinders hopefully next week, all being well. So yes, all good, all back to normal. So Nev, for the benefit of those who may not know, and they should know really by now, where can our glorious listeners find us on social media?
Yes, on the socials, it's Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Just search for Plane Talking UK. You can contact us on our WhatsApp number, which is +44 757 2249166. That's +44 757 2249166. Email the show, podcast@planetalkinguk.com, and the website, is all the W's, planetalkinguk.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation by joining us in the chat room, of course. Just go to youtube.com and search for Plane Talking UK. Don't forget, you can also use the Amazon link on our website, which will enable you to get us a small referral fee from Amazon when you do your shopping. And you can also go to the website for information about helping us by funding the show with Patreon and PayPal. Details of that are all on our website. So that's it.
Carlos?
Oh,
sorry, that's me. That's my fault. That's because I coughed there and I switched the microphone off.
seriously.
That is where we're going to bring episode 439 to a close of the show. Big thanks to everyone who's tuned in tonight via YouTube to watch the show, and also not forgetting everyone who downloads the show as an audio podcast each week. Thank you to everyone involved in that as well. We'll see you next Friday for episode 440 of the show. So don't forget to tune in next Friday at 7 o'clock to the Plane Talking UK podcast. So from me, Carlos here in the home studio, from Matt in the PTUK Master Suite studios, from Armando in his glorious studio over in America, and from Nev in his fantastic suite over in
Soundproof,
Buckinghamshire.
don't you know? Soundproof.
Soundproofed as well. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
See you. Bye.